Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we live, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we live, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, we lift our Hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Who is the awesome Yah? There is none like you. With you we live, you're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, there is none like you. With you we live, you're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. There is none like you. With you we live. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. Celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. You we can lose, we always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. You we can lose, we always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. As we are gathered together this night, our Yom Shishi, day 6, a time to celebrate and a time to prepare. I'm sure all of us are finished with our preparations. And so now, as we finish with our preparations, we come now to settle down a little bit and to get some study in. And so it's important that we do so. And so this is our pre-Sabbath class as we come together tonight. And I want to say Torah for you and you that are with us on this night as we prepare to do some studying of the Torah. We're going to first start by doing the Baruch of the Torah. And it is so. And it is so. See if I put it back up. Come on, you can Baruch. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You don't have to stop praising. It's we're going to go ahead and read the Ten Commandments. Apostle Brown is going to read that for us out of the book of Leviticus, chapter 5, verses 6 through 22. And he's going to read that as we prepare to do the Baruch of the Torah.
Adam, I am Yahuwah your power, which brought you out of the land of Mizraim, from the bed of slavery. Bet you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemaim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the man beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah your power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the idols upon the children under the 34th generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. David, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mizraim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, honor Yahweh your Ema as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. What? You shall not murder, saying, neither shall you commit a murder. Neither shall you commit adultery. Take, neither shall you steal. Take, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. Neither shall you desire your neighbor's wife. Neither shall you covet your neighbor's bait, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, give me a second. And it is so.
It is so.
Give me just a second to pull this up. I don't like going without it. Push it back. Okay. All right. Sorry for that delay. All right, repeat with me. Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah, our supreme one.
Yahuwah, our supreme
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us from all peoples.
Who selected us from all peoples.
And gave us his Torah.
And gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Now we're going to go to the book of Yahusha, the son of Nun, chapter 1, verse 7 and 8. And it reads, only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Turn not from it to the right nor to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. All right, verse 8, as I have tailored it to fit our time of confession. Let us read this together. I will not let this scroll of the Torah.
I will not let this scroll of the Torah
Depart out of my mouth.
depart out of my mouth.
But I shall meditate on it.
But I shall meditate on it
Day and night.
day and night,
That I may observe to do.
that I may observe to do
According to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
For then I shall make my way prosperous.
For then I shall make my way prosperous
And act wisely.
and act wisely.
And act wisely.
And act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor and tell your other neighbor, you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Now take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yah, I shall act wisely.
I shall act
No,
wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us have a song, please.
Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Testify. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll do my dance while I have a chance. Believe I'll do my dance while I have a chance. Believe I'll do my dance while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll do my dance while I have a chance. Believe I'll do my dance while I have a chance. Believe I'll do my dance while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance, and I may not have this chance. 'Cause 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 I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. Believe I'll testify all the help of my neighbor while I have a chance. Believe all the help of my neighbor while I have a chance. Believe all the help of my neighbor while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe all the help of my neighbor while I have a chance. Believe all the help of my neighbor while I have a chance. Believe all the help of my neighbor while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. Believe I'll run on while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. Believe I'll clap my hands while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll shout, shout while I have a chance. Believe I'll shout, shout while I have a chance. Believe I'll shout, shout while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll shout, shout while I have a chance. Believe I'll shout, shout while I have a chance. Believe I'll shout, shout while I have a chance. 'Cause I may not have this chance. 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 May not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. Believe I'll testify while I have a chance. May not have this chance anymore. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. Believe I'll study the Torah while I have a chance. May not have this chance anymore.
Most powerful and great and upright He is, as we have come once again to on this day of preparation, a day that we prepare for Sabbath rest. Sabbath rest for us does not begin until the Sabbath, from sun up till sun up on the first day. That is how we celebrate the Sabbath. So any of you that may have had questions or wondered why we do what we do, that's why we do, and it is in the writing. So, but just to allow you to know, we celebrate Sabbath on the Sabbath from sun up to sun up the next day, which is a full day. So once again, I want to say total to you for joining us in our pre-Sabbath class on tonight. We're going to read from the writings, the book of Devarim, or the writings of the scroll of Devarim, chapter 6, verses 1 through 18. And it reads, "These are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land which you are going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yisrael, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily in the land, that you may increase mightily as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Supreme One, Yahuwah is Akkad. Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah is our word, Yahuwah is Akkad. And you shall ahaba Yahuwah your Supreme One with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall. To what? Bind to the mind. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land, which he swore unto your Abbas, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you great and awesome cities which you did not build. And houses full of all great things which you filled not, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power, and serve him, and shall swear his name. You shall not go after the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, and his testimonies and his statutes which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is right and upright in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah swore unto your fathers. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. It is important that we follow the writings. Luke 18:1 says, men ought to always pray and not faint. It's important that we keep a posture and a lifestyle of prayer, so that we will know how to govern ourselves, and we will know how to live according to the writings. Once again, because there has been so much syncretism and so much stuff that has been revered as truth and has been exalted as truth, we tend to follow what is the populace, and we tend to follow what everybody else is doing, and that is not always right. Sure. That's why it's important that we follow the writings, and that we follow it based upon a lifestyle of prayer, so that we will know what to do and how to do it at all times. And that's important. It's very important, once again, because we have so many things going on, and because it is popular doesn't make it right.
That's right.
Does not make it right. Definitely does not make it right. So it's important that we understand that. All of us are striving to do, I don't want to say do our best, because if we pray and seek him, the Ruach HaKodesh will tell us what we're supposed to do and how we're to do it.
That's right.
So we have really no room. If we listen to the Ruach HaKodesh, she will tell us what we're supposed to do, and she will lead and guide us into all truth. So it's important that we understand that. And it is so.
And it is so.
Mishlei 15:8, the sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination, hate and exceedingly offensive unto you, Yah. But the prayer of the upright is your delight. Mishlei 3:4, so shall you find great understanding and high esteem at the sight of judgment of Yahuwah and man. and it is so.
And it is so.
Tehillim 34:15, the eyes of Yahuwah are upon the upright, and his ears open unto our cry. Verse 17, the upright cry, and Yahuwah heareth, and delivereth us out of all our troubles. Acts 1:8. But we shall receive power after that the Ruach HaKodesh has come upon us, and we shall be witnesses unto him, both in Jerusalem and all Judea and Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And it is so.
And it is so.
Tehillim 1:1, Baruch is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the instructions of our Yah, and he doth meditate upon it. And it is so.
And it is so.
Hebrews 11:6, without belief it is impossible to please him, for he that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. It takes belief to be our obedient, diligent, disciplined, and it is so.
And it is so.
Ayah 33:4, the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. Somebody said he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Say it again, he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Micah 4:8, but truly I am full of power by the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah, and of judgment and of might, to declare unto Yaakov his transgression, and to Yisrael his sin. And it is so.
And it is so.
Yehukim Moshiach, which is Mark 11:24, and it reads, therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire when you pray, believe that you receive them, and ye shall have them. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. It is important that when we go into a posture of prayer, that we believe what we're asking for.
That's right.
It may not come overnight, but you can be rest assured if you believe it, it's going to happen. Yehukim and Aleph 5:4-5, for whatsoever is born of Yahuwah overcometh the world. And this is the victory that overcometh the world. And I will believe. Who is he that overcomes the world? But he that believeth that Yahusha is the son of Yahuwah. Yehukim in chapter 2:5-6 says, but whoever keeps his word, meaning the Torah, truly the Ahava of Yahuwah is perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. He who says he abides in him ought also to walk as he walked. Verse 17, and the world passes away and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of Abba Yah abideth forever. Somebody say abideth forever.
Abideth forever.
Say it again, abideth forever.
Abideth forever.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Let us have another song, please.
All I need is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in my life and make it right. All I need is a touch from you. All I need is a touch from you. All I need is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in my life and make it right. All I need is a touch from you. All I need is a touch from you. All I need is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in my life and make it right. All I need is a touch from you. All I need is a touch from you. All I need is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in my life and make it right. All I need is a touch from you. All I need is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in our life and make it right. All I want is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in my life and make it right. All I want is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in my life and make it right. All I want is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. No one else can do the things you do. Take the wrong in my life and make it right. All I want is a touch from you. All I want is a touch from you. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. He is most worthy to be praised. Devarim chapter 11 verses 13 through 22. Once again, repetition is so important unto us as a people. I know I say it, and I know people probably know me by it. But it is important that we understand what it takes to renew, what it takes to bring us out of that place of comfort, what it takes for us to truly understand growth and development. Even babies, when they are babies, understand to a degree that they have to come out of Pampers, they have to come out of diapers, they have to come out of training pants, and they have to begin to wear that what was created for them to wear, underwear. And so even those that have learned how to
ride bikes, you use training wheels. Then there comes a time where those training wheels have to be removed. But until you've ridden and you've ridden and you've ridden until you got it down packed to where you can take those training wheels off and ride, it is important that they stay on. And so we're in a time as we continue to read, and these are not just the only scriptures, but these are the ones that Abba Yah gave to me to give to his people, to our people. And that is so that we can develop and always stay focused no matter what we're up against and no matter what we're facing. We must understand that even in the midst of that, we got to sometimes look through it. And if we can't look through it, we got to look around it and look beyond it to what's most important. And that's to our obedience to following the Torah. And so it's important that we understand repetition. We understand that it's important that we do what we do repetitiously.
That's right.
Once again, Devarim chapter 11, verses 13 through 22, and it reads, "And it shall come to pass, if you listen carefully to my commandments, which I command you this day, to Ahava Yahuwah your power, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your corn and your wine and your oil. And I will send grass in your fields for your cattle, that you may eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and you turn aside and serve the power and worship them." Now, somebody may ask the question in verse 15, how does that relate to us? "And I will send grass in your fields for your cattle, that you may eat and be full." We understand what retroactive means. In other words, we are preparing and storing up for where we're going. Yes, he's going to make a way for us here, but the greatest anticipation and expectation is when we get to where he has promised us, and that's our land, that place that he promised our Abbas, where he promised Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. He made a promise to them, and therefore that promise has been given unto us because we are the descendants. We are the children of Abba Yah. And so this is why it is important that we understand where we're going. Yes, we understand that we don't, not yet, some of us, but some of us are working on having cattle. We're working on having our gardens and all that great stuff. But even here in the land of our enemies, he will still Baruch us, but we're looking for the Baruch of all Baruchs. And that is when we get to our homeland, that we will be able to anticipate and expect greatness. We can anticipate and expect never having lack and never going without. So it's important that we understand why these things are supposed to be rehearsed in our ears. And he says, take heed to yourselves. Yes, take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and you turn aside and serve other power and worship them. And then Yahuwah's wrath be ignited against you, and he shut up Shemayim, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit. Once again, you have to understand everything Abba Yah has promised us. He's promising us these, or he's already promised these things, and we can look forward to it. Nobody wants to be looking, anticipating going home or going to land, and now it's going to be hard as crap to try to get those things working and getting everything together. So you have to understand this promise is a covenant. So we can look forward to when we go home, not a struggle, not a battle to get the land to cooperate with us, not a struggle to have the elements work with us. As if you've really been watching, you see that the elements, if you have a garden, it's important that you make sure you have your garden covered, because if not, the rain will just about drown it out. And if the rain doesn't drown it out, then you have to worry about the chemtrails. Right. So it's important that we understand what this signifies for us right now. This is being stored up for us now, but also for where we're going. So it's important that we remember that and understand that. Now, once again, it's important that we follow and be obedient to everything that he's saying to us, so that we don't have to worry about the land locking up and not yielding her fruit, and that we don't have to worry about the Shemayim shutting off rain. And listen what he says, unless you perish quickly from off the good land which he will give you. Therefore shall you lay up these my words in your heart and your soul, and bind them for a sign from off the great land which Yahuwah gives you. Therefore shall you lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes, to fall bind to the mind. And you shall teach them your children, speaking of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your bed and upon your gates, that your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children in the land which Abba Yah swore unto your Abbas, to give them as the days of Shemaiah upon the earth. For if you shall carefully keep all these commandments I command you to do them, to Ahaba Yahuwah your power, and to walk in all his halakha, and to cling unto him. And it is so.
And it is so.
It's important that we understand, no, we don't need to be reminded to Ahaba him, but it's important that we be reminded what comes along with the benefits of Ahabing him. And so it's important that we understand these things. Once again, as we've come to this portion of our time of declaration and our time of declaration of shalom and healing, I want you to repeat with me, Abba Yah,
Abba Yah,
in the name of Yahusha,
in the name of Yahushua,
our Mashiach,
our Mashiach,
we subdue ignorance
we subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge,
And through this knowledge
and through this knowledge
of Torah truth,
of Torah truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and salvation.
We decree
We decree
Torah truth
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our people, Yisrael.
Yisrael.
We unite
We unite
not to fight
not to fight
each other,
each other,
but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so.
It is so.
And it is so. It is important that we understand who our fight is with. And it is not with each other. And contrary to sometimes what we see, it is not with each other. As we come once again to this portion, let us prepare to seal our time of prayer and our time of confession. This is what I believe seals it, and this is what keeps us in a position and also a posture to always think before we speak. Always give thought before we utter anything from our mouths. Never utter anything from your mouth when you read. Never utter anything in your mouth when you are emotionally disturbed. When you are frustrated, because when you do say things, and you have to remember, we cannot reel those words back in. So it is important that we remind ourselves that if we're asking him these things, then we know we don't want to be said something, and then we say, well, I know I don't want to ask you for this, and this is what I've said, or this is what I thought during the day. So let us please make sure that we are training our minds and training ourselves through the Torah, how to be disciplined, how to be set apart. I know that there are times that when we're in deep thought, if we're not careful, our minds will be over left field somewhere. Because sometimes you can be thinking so hard and focusing on one thing that sometimes you, I know me personally, I'm thinking about this and 50 other things jump up in my mind. And so I got about 100 things going on. But it's important that we maintain and not let anything come in and hijack our thought life. Right. Nothing come in and basically subdue us even through our thought life. So it's important that we understand this very verse right here that is very impacting, I believe, to my life, and I pray to yours also. Let us bow before our King as we prepare to have this last confession. Repeat with me, may the utterance of my mouth,
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart,
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just read from Tehillim 19 and 15, and it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Come on, you may be seated in his presence as we prepare to go into our class on this Yom Shishi, day 6. It's important, once again, that we fortify our belief and that we fortify our way of life through the writings. I know in this time that we're living in, and I have come to understand many things as Aliyah continues to groom me and continues to cause me to grow in truth, is that one thing about us as a people, and this is not, what would you say, not trying to, I am trying to think of the word I want to say on here, profiling. trying to profile us as a people. But as a people, as such, I realize that even as I was once in that position where, can't nobody tell us nothing. Can't nobody tell us nothing. We know it all, we see all, and we know all. Well, it's important that we understand as we continue to progress and as we continue to grow, we're going to have some of us, someone in our life to help us. Now, someone might say, well, you say some of us, because you have to understand all of us are prophets, all of us are not morals, all of us are not leader guides. Some of us are sheep. All of us are sheep. Let me correct that. All of us are sheep, but all of us have not been given the authority or the anointing to teach or lead. Right. Whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, it's important that we understand that we have instructions and guidance to follow. And so with that being said, we need to understand everything that Abba Yah gives to us is for a reason. There's a lot of things that are being said, and there's a lot of things that continue to be said. But we have to ask the question, is it Abba Yah or is it the traditions of man? Right. The reason why we should ask is because you have to understand, because we have been so inundated with living by a way for so long that we tend to say, well, everybody's doing it, so why not jump on the bandwagon? That's why in the very beginning, if we really begin to read, we see even in the book of Judges or in the scroll of Judges, the reason why judges were brought forth was because Yasrael would not act right. So he had the time of the judges. He put the judges in place because it was a time to get the people to understand his instructions and guidance. Then when they didn't do right, that's when he brought forth the prophets. And you have to understand the prophets are still here. That's why Matthew 5, 17 and 18, he says, think not that I've come to do away with but the teachings of the law of Allah or the prophets. He was saying that because so many were doing away, especially those of the Sanhedrin Council and those that were the sages and the rabbis at that time, they were basically in cahoots together, and they wanted to silence the true voice of Abba Yah. They wanted to walk in the seat of Moshiach. So they began to do a lot of these things, and you have the same people with that same mentality today, just in different time, but yet that same type of ruach. So it's that we understand that everything that Abba Yah gives to us, if you read in the writings, it is repetitious or repetition. He tells us in one vein, be careful to keep. Then in another, he says to observe or to guard, which sums up the same thing. That means that the enemy is out there and desires to take what we have because he knows that what we have is important to our way of life, and it is important to our strength so that we can stay on course and not stray what he's given unto us to do. Right. This is why I appreciate him for giving me this to give and to share with our people, and that is our weekly Torah week readings. It's important that we understand why, because it shows us the outline and the path that our ancestors and forefathers took. And the reason why I say it's important, because we find ourselves sometimes doing and walking in the same path, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, whether we want to boldly say, you know what, I've walked in that, I found myself walking in that recently or in the past, and acknowledge that and say, you know what, I need to change that because I don't want to do what they did. I don't want to follow in the path, in the negative route, or walk in the negative path or route they took and end up losing out because I'm still walking in disobedience. So I think I told Abba Yah for what he's given unto us. And when I say given unto us, I'm talking about to us as a family or as the mishpachah of Abba Yah, so that we can have something to govern our lives throughout the week and throughout the month. Right. So it's important that we do so. So once again, somebody may say, well, I read my writings. That's great. I'm not knocking you for reading your writings. I read the writings. I'm not knocking you whatsoever. But what I am saying is that it's good when it's great when you can have somebody that you can sit down and study with, and that you can listen to the writings, and that you yourself, as they're being read, can read along as well, and get a great understanding, because you have to understand there is strength in numbers. Right. There is strength in numbers. And so while we have the chance, it's important that we capitalize on it. So once again, it's important that we understand. And as he's given this to me, whatever he gives to me, it is within my responsibility and my obligation to give to you those that are willing to hear. And he says, observe to do. So it's important that we understand we are to observe and to do all the teachings that he's given unto us. And it is so. And it is so. All right, this weekend, our theme is Wayesh. Wayesh. And he drew near. And he drew near. That is our theme. And he drew near. And it is Wayesh. And he drew near. And we'll be coming from the book of Bereshit, chapter 44, verse 18. When you haven't seen it, so once again, we'll be coming from, I will be reading two, comparing them because I like to compare the readings or the writings to compare. I'll be reading from the Besor as well as from the Abrahamic Covenant writings. I love both. And so they use different words at times, but when it's all said and done, it sounds, it's good. I mean, it's great. Oh, help me, y'all. Oh, boy. It's great. So, once again, we're going to start at verse 18, and we're going to read, let's read 5 verses, please. And I'll begin the reading, and I'm going to be coming from the Abrahamic Covenant first. Then Yehuda came near to him and said, "O my master, please let your servant speak a word in my master's hearing, and do not let your anger burn against your servant. You are even like Pharaoh." Now remember, we're picking up last week when they were with their Yosef, and they're dining, and now it's to the point where it is getting really touch and go, and emotions are flaring up, not to the point where they're backing out, but now we're beginning to see certain things take place, and we're able to see the discipline, and we're able to see the self-control, and we're just able to see a lot of things that I believe that's really important unto us as a people. And so once again, we're going to look at this, and he wants to talk to him. And so he says, "My master asked his servant, saying, have you a Abba or a brother? And we said to my master, we have a Abba, an elderly man, and a child of his old age, who is young. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his Abba Ahabas him." 21. "And you said to your servants, bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him. And we said to my master, the lad cannot leave his Abba. If he should leave his Abba would die." Now, once again, I believe this is where it begins to be becomes real with Joseph. Because now, remember, he's hearing what's going on with his Abba. He's realizing now that, his Abba is fair, but at the same time, he's not. Because he's still in that mode of protection for Benjamin. Because he doesn't want anything to happen. And so now Buddha has to speak up, because remember, he told him, he said, I will take care of him. He said he will basically be my responsibility, because when Reuben wanted to do it, it was as if he said nothing. Even when Reuben was willing to give up his own 2 sons, he said, you can kill my 2 sons. He said, if I don't. And so it was not even looked upon, because if you notice and you read, Yaakov didn't even take heed to it. He didn't even really, in my opinion, even focus on what he said. It was almost like it went right over his head, because he kept on striving. You have to understand, that's a lot to be willing to give up your own children so that you could go get your ox, so that you could appease your Abba. And so it was as if he heard nothing that he offered him. It was like there was no bargaining. There was nothing of that came out of that conversation. But then when Yehuda spoke up, it was as if he heard it, which he did, and he said, okay, well, we got to go. We ain't wasted enough of time. Let's go, and I'll be sure. And so he basically told him, said, get gifts and go ahead and do what was requested of you, because they knew they needed the food. And so once again, now he gets here and he speaks up, because he's not willing to see all of this fall upon his Abba's shoulders again. And then you have to remember, he made he stood up and said, well, I will make sure he will be my responsibility. And so he owned up to what he said. He said, he'll be my responsibility. So I've got to speak up, even though this man is next to Pharaoh, meaning that he had just as much authority as Pharaoh, except came down to the throne. So you have to understand, once again, he was taking a major gamble, but I believe in his heart of hearts that he knew that something good, something great was going to come out of the very situation. All right, so we're going to finish reading 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, please. Chapter 44 of Bereshit, and we're at verse 21. And it is 21 to 25.
The King James Version 21 to 25 reads, And thou said unto thy servant, Bring him down unto me, that I may set mine eyes upon him. And we said unto my master, The lad cannot leave his Abba, for he should leave his Abba would die. And thou said unto thy servant, Except your youngest brother come down with you, ye shall see my face no more. And it came to pass, when he came unto thy servant, my Abba, we told him the words of my master. And our Abba said, Go again and buy us a little food. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, he is giving him this because now it's like, okay, we told you what would be the result if anything happened. And now it's almost like now all of a sudden this is happening. And we were saying, really, this can happen. And so once again, it's kind of like, okay, what's going on here? And he says, okay, now let's read verse 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29.
Verse 25 to 29.
Just rereading.
This is the King James Version. Tongue James. And our father said, Go again and buy us a little food. And we said, We cannot go down if our youngest brother be with us. Then we will go down, for we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. Verse 27. And thy servant, my father, said unto us, Ye know that my wife bare me 2 sons.
Now, right. We won't use the word wife either. We will use Isha. Yes, it's Isha. Because wife is not a good word either. 28.
Verse 28. And the one went out from me, and I said, Surely he is torn in pieces, and I saw him not since.
And it is so. Now, once again, he is basically being the in-between. He's being in between because he realizes once again that if this befalls his Abba, what will be the result? Because now you have to remember, he saw how Yaakov reacted when they came back and said that Joseph was dead. They brought back the multicolored cloak or coat and torn shreds covered in blood, and he lost it. He lost it. And so I'm sure that was something that they did not ever want to have to see their Abba go through again. And he made it clear once again that this was his ish and that he ahabered her and that those were his 2 sons by her. Now, once again, you have to kind of look at how that could have made them feel. But at the same time, because of their ahaba for him, they realized, well, we can't afford to let anything happen because he mourned for a very long time over the thought of Joseph being dead. And so I'm sure, once again, they did not want to see him digress back into that time of depression or to where he was, wanting to literally die. And, they were saying, we're here, we can do this. And he said, it just didn't move him. And so until he made up his mind, he was through grieving, he grieved. And so it's important that we understand, once again, he did not want this to befall his Abba again. And so he's saying, we can't. verse 29 says, and if you take this one also from me, and calamity befalls him, you shall bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. In other words, he's saying, I'm going to die. You're going to bring my gray hair. That meant he had gray hair. Then I'm not going to be able to maintain. I'm not going to be able to make it. In other words, I don't want to live. So I'm telling you now, he better come back. So you have to understand now, somebody would say, well, in our day and time, what would that equate to? We know we have had mishpachah that have gone into where they have lost someone that they have ahabad tremendously. If they did not lose a person, it was something that they regarded dear to them. And so we've seen people grieve. We've seen people brokenhearted. We've seen people to the point that it broke our hearts, and we were saying, please, when they come up out of this, we don't ever want to see them go back into anything like that. Right. And they make it known, I won't go through this. I can't go through this again. I don't want to go through this again. So if you have any kind of sympathy or any kind of heart, you be like, no, we cannot. There are some things that can be prevented, and then there are some things that cannot. And so with this situation, because of the delicacy of it, they had to take him down there. But you have to understand, Yehuda doesn't know that this is Joseph. So in his mind, I can imagine that he is, oh my, what have we gotten ourselves into? We need the food. He's been accused of stealing, so we got to do this thing. Right. And so it's important that we understand the position that he was put in. But he kept his composure. He kept his discipline. He was able to intellectually talk to him, as well as talk to him, I believe, with a calm demeanor. Because what sense would it have made to blow it out of proportion when they knew they couldn't do anything because they were at the mercy of Mitzrayim and Yosef? Are you understanding? Yes. So once again, he didn't try to make the situation worse, and I'm sure he probably had to keep the others through his demeanor. We have to learn how to use composure even when we're dealing in situations that really, really, really are sometimes feel like they are above what our hearts can truly handle. It's important that we respond and not react. I know I say this, and there is times when we are supposed to react. If you're about to get hit by a bus, you react. You don't respond. You react. You get out of the way. First and foremost, I hope you never get in that position, but you get out of the way. But there are times that it is imperative that we respond and not react, because your reactions can cause somebody to get hurt, or even you to get hurt, or you to hurt somebody, right, because you have reacted and caused them to react towards you. So it's important that we understand, but I believe he kept his composure, which kept his other composed, because they realized we cannot afford to leave without him. We can't. We just cannot. So you have to understand what he was doing. He was putting his life on the line, just like he had promised. Now, once again, let's look at what that means to us. Never put your word on the line, and never put your mouth out there unless you're going to follow through. And you will do everything it takes to make sure you are able to follow through with what you said. Excuse me. Because if not, then what happens? We become liars. That's right. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a liar in the face of Abba Yah. Neither do I want to be known as a liar in the face of my Ak or my Akodi. That's right. So it's important that if you put your word out there, own up to your word. Right. Right. Own up to it. Don't let anything stop you from owning up to it. All right, now let's look at verse 32, 33, and 34. Yes.
Verse 32 from the King James Version. For thy servant became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, If I bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore, I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad a bondman to my master, and let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me? Lest peradventure I see the evil that come are my father.
And it is so. Now remember, Yehuda was the one who was talking about, right? He was the one talking about killing him.
Yes.
Now here it is. He is pleading. Now remember when Joseph was pleading for his life and begging them, don't put me in that pit. Then when they got him, don't sell me, please don't sell me. Don't sell me, don't sell me. Now you have to understand, at that time, they were not thinking about the consequences, nor were they thinking about how this would put their Abba in a position of heartache. All they were thinking about at that time is what would make them feel great, what would make them feel better. And so without even giving regard, they did that. They reacted towards their frustration, anger, and even hatred towards Joseph. So you have to understand why he's doing this. I'm sure in Joseph's mind, it's playing back in his mind and heart. When I pleaded and begged, you all didn't even give me even that chance. You didn't care one way or the other how I felt about it. You just wanted me out of the picture. Once again, what does this say to us? You cannot be tit for tat.
That's right.
You cannot go and be trying to basically say, you kill my cat, I will your dog. You kill my dog, I'm going to burn your house down. You burn my house down, then guess what? I'm going to go and I'm going to spread all kinds of lies about your mishpachah. I'm going to put stuff up there. I'm going to even fake stuff. I'm going to make up stuff to ensure that you hurt just as bad as I hurt. This stuff is not, this is not what it's supposed to be, and we are not supposed to do that.
That's right.
Once again, it is important that we understand who we are. We are the children of power. We are his children. And as such, we are supposed to carry ourselves like we are his children. We are supposed to carry ourselves as Yahushua carried himself. Remember in Yahushua in chapter 2, 5, 6, where he says that we ought to walk as he walked. In verse 5, that means that we are supposed, in verse 6, that means we are supposed to walk in the manner that he walked. How can I walk as he walked if I don't know how he walked?
Right. That's right.
Once again, when they began to beat him, when they began to ridicule him, he didn't go back and be trying to get them straight. Well, I'll fix you. I'll tell you off. He didn't get up there trying to slander them. He didn't get up there and trying to go back and say, well, I'll get them. Wait till I get enough of stuff on them to go back and make sure everybody know they ain't no good.
That's right.
He didn't do that. He went on according to the mission and according to the purpose that he was brought forth in the earth. And that was to go and get the prostituting sheep of Israel. This is why we have to stay focused. Yes, that stuff gets on my upright nerve suit. Yes, it does. I don't like seeing when other people slander, especially our people.
Right.
Our siblings slander one another. And then when you get in and try to be that voice of reasoning and you try to be the mediator, then you get slammed and you say, but I'm just trying to do what? I'm just trying to help. Now you're talked about, now you are thrown into it instead of them stopping and saying, you know what, maybe we need to listen. Let us let our tempers cool down and then we will come back and talk. Let's come back and talk. No, we lose focus. Now, instead of it being them, now we're pulled into it. Now we all in our feelings, all in ourselves. And now it's a threesome now. Because we had both of them. And then they come back. And then it just becomes like a cankerworm. It becomes like gangrene. It becomes like poison. And it just begins to spread and spread and spread. And then we're wondering, what happened? Because we didn't show discipline. Once again, yes, you can get angry. Even the writing tells us to get angry, but what? Sin not. We're not supposed to sin. We're not supposed to break Torah. We're not supposed to get out of character.
That's right.
And this is where, once again, I love Yahushua, chapter 1, verse 7 and 8, primarily 8. For when we don't let the Torah depart out of our mouths, but meditate on it, and observe to do according to all that is written in it, then we will make our way prosperous and do what? Act wisely.
That's right.
That means no matter what is going on, what's being said or done, you will compose yourself to act wisely. Mm-hmm. That's the way we're supposed to do. Because we are supposed to learn, we're supposed to develop into this way. Mm-hmm. It takes doing, especially if you've been a person that's been accustomed to saying, no, Trigger, no, you come at me, I'm coming at you, and I'm coming at you harder than you came at me. You have to discipline yourself To not go after people when you know they've come after you with everything they got plus some.
That's right.
It takes discipline, and it takes realizing I can't abort the mission.
Mm-hmm.
I can't abort what I've been sent to do, and that's to get the prostituting sheep of Yisrael. I can't go and engage in this fight because I already have what I'm in, and that's getting them out of the grips of prostitution.
That's right.
And so it's important that we understand what's going on. Come on, let's give him praise. Let's give him praise. Once again, it's important because we're trying to get them out of the mentality and out of that lifestyle of prostitution. And we can't do that if we already engaged in fighting a battle already. So it's important that we understand. I want to say this real quick. If it times out and throws you out, we're still here. You have time. Come on back and be with us. Once again, I do apologize for it doing what it's doing, but don't quit us. Stick with us and come on back and be with us. In the mighty name of Yahushua HaMashiach. It is so.
It is so.
And it is so. All right. And it is so. All right. We're going to go to chapter 45 and we're going to read 5 verses.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us read.
Bereshit chapter 45, verses 1 to 5.
Okay.
Then Yosef could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him. And he cried out, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stood with him while Yosef made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Mitzrayim and the Beth of Pharaoh heard it. Then Yosef said to his brothers, "I am Yosef. Does my father still live?" And his brothers could not answer him, for they trembled in his presence. And Yosef said to his brothers, "Please come near to me." And they came near. And he said, "I am Yosef, your brother, whom you sold into Mitzrayim. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For power sent me before you to preserve life." And it is so.
And it is so. Now look at what he said. Power did this. You were just the instruments, the tools that he used. It's important that we understand that. Once again, you have to understand, and I'm doing everything I know how to not to cry on this. He could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him. Now you have to understand why he had to put them out, because they were like his bodyguards. So they had to leave. And so when they left, that's when he made himself known to his brothers. And you have to understand that took a lot, because now he's listening, and Yosef is, and Yehuda is almost begging for the life of Benjamin. You are hearing me?
Yes.
He realizes the actions of what he did the first time cannot be repeated, even though it's not in his control, but yet he is determined. He is determined to bargain. He is determined to negotiate to make sure that Benjamin goes back home.
That's right.
He is determined. He is determined. So he is saying, I can't. And so with that, because he has a heart. Somebody says he has a heart.
He has a heart.
And because he had a heart, he could not go on. Now, once again, somebody may say, what does it have to do with us? When we have hearts, you cannot remain angry with a person but for so long.
Right.
Once again, when we are truly walking truth and we understand some of the things we have to go through, knowing we don't like it, and I can testify, no, I don't like going through some of the things I have to go through. But I understand that it's building a greater and better purpose in me.
Right.
And that's being real. And so you have to learn that you can't hold grudges and you can't be angry with people. And he had to realize, by going through and dialoguing with him and realizing, my Abba is still alive, and I don't want to be the one that causes this harm because I'm trying to get back at them, because I'm trying to keep this thing going. He had to come to a point where he said, no, I can't do this. Remember, he Ahaba'd him so much.
That's right.
Yaakov didn't just Ahaba Yosef. Yosef Ahaba his Abba.
That's right.
And so you have to understand that was mutual. And so he couldn't take it. You have to understand, he also ahabed his ox. He ahabed them also.
That's right.
They were the one that were jealous and angry of him. But he couldn't do it any longer. And he wept aloud in the Mitzrayim, and the bed of Pharaoh heard it. Do you understand how hard he had to be crying? It didn't say he cried, it said he wept. You know, we cry with it. And you know, you're trying to get your gangs to cry, I'm cool, leave me alone. I got it, I'm straight. You snip, I got it, I'm good, I go. But then when you get that one and it comes from down up in here, you do that. You cried, but they heard him. That meant that he was crying from the depths of his soul. Do you know how long he had held that in? He held that in a long time. You have to remember, when he into slavery, he was in his teens. He was 17.
Right.
He was 30-something years old when he began to rule as the governor of Mitzrayim. That's 20-something years to be carrying that type of hurt and pain. Now, for many, we won't admit that we hurt like that because we don't want anybody to believe that we can be hurt.
That's right.
There are times that you have to understand what I'm going to say. And you don't think I'm crazy, because I'm not. But there are times you got to let it out and release it.
That's right.
And that's the truth. You don't have to go to no therapist, pay them no $50 an hour or $200 to $300 an hour to lay on a couch and let them tell you what you need to do. You need to just release.
That's right.
Sometimes you just need to have a good old cry it out of your soul. Cry out to Abiyah. Cry out and let it out.
Right.
I didn't say go tear up anything. I said cry it out. Weep it out.
That's right.
Get out there and weep it out. Get it out of you. Do you not know bagged up pipes will burst?
Yes.
They will burst. And you just sometimes have to get it out. Now you have to understand that was therapy for him. That was his therapy. And he had to do it. Now listen what it said. And then now you have to understand that probably about scared the Jesus out of them. It scared them. Why? Because you have to understand, all these years they thought he was dead. But he was very much alive.
Right.
Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, does I still live? And his brothers could not answer him, for they trembled in his presence. You have to understand that poor one on them, they probably thought they had died and come back alive. Because all they realize is, wait a minute, asking us what? You mean all this time? Now you have to understand, no matter how strong and how tough you may believe you are, there are times that can humble you to your knees.
That's right.
There are things that will bring you to your knees, to where you are speechless, to where you can't utter a sound. And this is where I believe they were, because they couldn't believe it. I'm sure they probably thought they were talking to a ghost, because they had no idea where he was going to be. They didn't know what was going to happen to him. So look what happens. And Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph. Because they probably were still thinking, oh, somebody probably stole his identity. And this don't look like him. He's bald-headed and got all this makeup on. And, you have to understand, the reason why he sent them out was because now he's speaking in his own dialect, his own language. He didn't need any interpreters. And so your brothers whom you sold into Mitzrayim, your brother whom you sold into Mitzrayim. Now he tells them, now he comforts them in verse 5. Now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For power sent me before you to preserve life. Now you have to understand, we can turn around and say to preserve you. Understand, everybody, it was, for those, but primarily it was for the children of Yisrael.
That's right.
That is why he ended up going there. Everybody else benefited from it, but it was primarily for Yaakov and his children, his offspring. Now, one thing you have to understand, he told them, don't be grieved. Don't be grieved. He said, don't be grieved. Now, once again, that takes a lot, because sometimes we be angry for years and years and years and years and years and years, and then we be angry and we let that anger pass on down to our children. And they be angry and don't even know why they angry, because they didn't inherited anger.
That's right.
We can't do that, because do you not know it'll kill you?
Yes.
It'll kill you. And it's important that we don't allow ourselves to be angry to the point that we cannot move on and do better. All right. Now, let's look at verses 6, 7, and 9, please. Chapter 45.
69.
69.
For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and yet there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And power sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance.
Now, hold on. Once again, verse 6 and 7 says what? For these 2 years the famine has been in the land. Now, mind you, that they just at that point needed, in that second year, they needed help. So that meant they had enough stored up until that second year of famine. Or they had, just say in the second year, they were able to go in, get what they needed, because the first time when they went, it was, say, some months. Then after the months had gone up or had expired, they had to go back again. And so it was still within that second year of the famine that they had to go back. Now, mind you, it was going to really get worse. And he said, yet there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. That means that it was going to get so rough that you weren't going to be able to plow the land. And if you couldn't plow the land, you couldn't plant. And if you can't plant, you can't harvest, because there is nothing to harvest. And this is what he says, and power sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth. Not in just the land, in the earth. That meant, once again, he put him in that position, but that position was for the posterity and to preserve the family of the Mishkah of Yisrael. That is why he was put there. Even though other people benefited from it, it was strictly for them. Now, once again, look what he says. And to save your lives by a great deliverance. To save your lives by a great deliverance. So you have to understand, he understood what his position was. He understood what it was he was supposed to do. So again, it's important that we understand. And this is why we have to get all that out of us. Now, some of us may not think we have anger, and we may not have, issues where we bitter with folk, and, that we, got all this bottled up in us. But there are those of us that do. And when we do that, because you know why? We will stop ourselves. Anger, wrath, and bitterness will keep us from helping the people that Yahuwah put us in place to help and preserve.
That's right.
Because we'll be so angry with them, we won't be able to do anything. But guess what will happen? We won't be picked to do it. Why? We might even have the skills and may even be qualified. But if we do not have the right character and we don't have the right heart, we will be basically, we will not be chosen to do it. Why? Because we can't. You cannot choose who you want to help because you're angry with them and who you don't want to help.
That's right.
It's important that we understand that. And it is so.
It is so.
Now understand, let me correct that. Now, not so much correct it, but let me also add a footnote. And this is talking about people that are walking in truth. Okay? Because sometimes we tend to believe that, I'm just supposed to help Boo Boo Pookie them and, and Ray Ray them and, and Nene them. I'm just supposed to help everybody. No, you're not supposed to be angry with them. But you have to understand this is for the mishpachah of Yahweh. And so we are not to be angry with them. But we have to use wisdom in what we do. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. All right, let's finish reading.
Verse 8 reads, so now it was not you who sent me, but power, and he has made me an Abba to Pharaoh, and master of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Mitzrayim.
Now look at this in verse 8. He said, but power he has made me an Abba to Pharaoh. Now you see how amazing that is? He made him an Abba to Pharaoh. He respected him just that much that he was even able to give him instructions. It's important that we understand that. He was an Abba to Pharaoh, meaning that it had nothing to do with age. It had to do with the wisdom that he possessed or that he walked in. And so with that, he was able to not only just be a governor, but also be an Abba to Pharaoh. That's amazing. That is. See, because that's relationship. That's not just, business, a partnership in business. So I need you to make sure that this don't collapse. No, that's also a relationship and a bond that is forged. Because, you can't say that about everybody.
That's right.
Because everybody ain't that type of material. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right, let us read.
Verse 10 reads, and you should
9.
hurry and go up to my Abba, and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, thou hast made me master of all this reign. Come down to me, and do not tarry.
And it is so. Now he say, hurry, go up to my Abba and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, thou hast made me master of all Mitzrayim. Come down to me, do not tarry. It's like, come on, Papa. I missed you, and I've been away from you long enough. Let's do this. Now, once again, you have to understand, this was all for the Mishpachah of Yasrael. And so let's look at what's taking place here. Let's read 10, 11, 12, all the way to 15.
And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me, you and your children, your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. And there I will provide for you, for there are still 5 years of famine, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty. And behold, your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. So you shall tell my father of all my splendor in Mizraim, and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my father down here. Verse 14. Then he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck, and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brothers, and wept over them. And after this, his brothers talked with him. Verse 15. Now the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come, and it has pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. Verse 17. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and depart, go to the land of Canaan.
And so now look, this is what we call healing of the Mishpachah, and it began with them. And once again, he told me, he said, I will provide for you. He said, lest you will go into poverty. Now, you remember, he basically has to assure them not to feel guilty and not to feel bad about what they had done. He was encouraging them to not let it bother them, because I'm sure that is enough. If you have any kind of heart or any kind of remorse, that is something that would trouble you, especially when you look at what took place behind their actions. And so as all this is coming in, he says, I'm going to provide for you. And he said, now y'all have seen me now. I'm not a ghost. I am real. I'm tangible. And so he says, tell my Abba of all my splendor in Mitzrayim, and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my Abba down here. Because remember, that was his whole, that he Ahaba'd him. And so it was important for him to get him down there with him. And then look what he did. And he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. That's a long time to be separated from somebody and to be in a strange land, but yet you become familiar, because you understand, this is my job and I have to do this. It is not just for me, but it's for my Mishpachah. And if I fail at this, then I fail to do what Allah has showed me to. This is why I believe it is so important that we keep it in our hearts and minds. We can't fail. Right. You can't fail. I can't fail. Now somebody said, well, that's a lot. No, it is not. It's the truth. Joseph did not fail. That's right. Even in spite of everything the enemy threw at him, everything the enemy did to humiliate him, to crush his belief, right, to twist and distort truth, he held on to his ground, and he held on to what Abiyah showed him. Because he understood, if I fail at this, then I will fail my Mishpachah. And I fail my Mishpachah, And guess what? I'm going to fail Abba Yah. It's important that we understand that we can't fail in this. We cannot.
Right.
We can't fail. There is room for failure. Right. And so he weeps on his neck and he kisses him because that years was missed. But now he realizes I can make up for it because you're still alive and so am I. We can bond. We can make up for the time that we missed being together. Because this is what's most important. You staying alive and not dying because of poverty. Not dying because of starvation or because you don't have any water. Right. So you have to understand that. Now, moreover, he kissed all his ox. Now you have to understand, now listen at this, and wept over them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. Now you have to understand this. Thank you, Abba Yah. They got something from Joseph that they didn't get from Yaakov. They got acceptance. In spite of what they did to Joseph, they got acceptance. And that's why he was able to hug them and to kiss them. Are you understanding me?
Yes.
He was able to give to them what he had been getting all that time and what they had never got. Remember, he said, I'm even an Abba to Pharaoh. So you have to understand, I'm sure many things had time to play over in his head and in his heart and mind. And when he saw them as grown children. And he was able to hug, and I'm sure they cried, and they cried. Their eyes was probably so swollen, they probably couldn't see because they wept. You have to understand, once again, to weep is a harder type of crying or expressing yourself. And then afterwards, they talked. I'm sure they talked about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. But I'm sure that it was something that yet continued the process of their healing. You know, why would you do that to me? Well, I don't think it was that. I believe it's what you need us to do. What do we need to do from here? You know, I believe there were some apologies that were going on. But the most important part, where do we go from here? What is it that we need to do from here? Are you understanding?
Yes.
Once again, it's important that we see. Now look what he says to them. Now, the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come, and it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. Now that means that even Joseph had to give them, had to talk to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh that he had family, because how else would he have known that he had brothers?
Right.
How could remember he was sold? He was brought there like he had family. And so it pleased him because it pleased Joseph. And so you have to understand, this is why, once again, you have to understand we become the thermostat to many situations in our lives and different things. And if we don't do this thing right, it can truly blow up and not manifest into that what Abba Yah has desired for it to manifest into. Now listen what he says to him in verse 17. And he says, and Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and depart. Go to the land of Canaan. Now you have to understand when he told him to do that, because the animals even needed that rest. So he was to preserve everything of theirs.
Right. That's right.
And he goes on and he says in 18, bring your Abba and your households and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Mitzrayim, and you will eat the finest portions of the land. Now mind you, they're in a what? A famine. But he said, you come on, because I'm going to give you the best. This is what we have to anticipate and look forward to, even in the time of famine, even in the time of everything that we are anticipating and expecting to go to hell. And I'm not saying don't prepare, because that is not what I'm saying. I am saying prepare, but I am also saying that I believe that in this Mishpachah, that Yahuwah is going to raise up some Josephs. And that there are going to be places that we will be able to go and get help. But once again, never just rely on one source. Also make sure you have your stuff together. Make sure that, because he might want to use you as Joseph. You might be the governor of it, and you may be the one that Abba Yah uses. So it's important that we understand and we stay open. But most importantly, it is about embracing and accepting and being able to move forward from the past hurts and disappointments. Because if we can't, we won't be able to do what we're supposed to do. Why? Because we'll be so busy trying to get back at people that we'll forget. Look, y'all, there's other people involved in this too. It's important that we understand and that we're able to do. And so he told him, so now you have to understand, Pharaoh gets involved and he said, y'all gonna have to fight this. Why? Because he understood who they were connected to. They were connected to Joseph. And Joseph was what? Connected to Abiyah.
That's right.
So it's important that we understand that. Now he said, I'm going to give it to you. The best of all the land of Mizraim is yours. You have to understand, once again, even in hard time and bad times, Yahuwah will still give us esteem. And he will still cause those to give us that what is the best. But we have to be walking into place. We have to be living according to his instructions. We've got to be doing what he say do. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. And be a part of the Mishpachah of Yisrael. Are we understanding?
Yes.
All right. Now, let us read 21, 22, 23. And 24. 21 to 24.
And the sons of Yisrael did so. And Joseph gave them carts, according to the command of Pharaoh. And he gave provisions for their journey. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver, and 5 changes of garments. 23. And he sent to his father these things: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Mitzrayim, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain. Let him and food for his father for the journey. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed. And he said to them, see that you do not become troubled along the way.
And it is so. Because I mean, in all truthfulness, things do not tend to bother us until we get that type of atmosphere. Now we start thinking and contemplating and, start thinking, man, we did wrong. You think we come back, he's going to try to kill us? You think he going to, do Renee? Because, he does have clout. And, Pharaoh did do this. You sure we ought to go back? You sure this is the right move? You sure we ought to take it? What if he put us somewhere else? What if we become slaves? Because when you get out of the atmosphere, when you get out of that, then that's when all kind of questions sometimes tend to pop up and begin to resonate in the mind and in the heart. But look what he does, and he gives food for the journey there and then for their journey back. That's a lot. But you have to understand, he had it like that because Abiyah made sure that it would be positioned for them to have it in that manner. Now let's look at this, how he does this. He said, look what he does now. And he Joseph gave to them, verse 21. And the sons of Joseph did so, and Joseph gave them carts according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. Now, mind you, he's giving them provisions for the journey, not just there, but for on their way back. Okay? Yes. All right. Now, on their back. Now, he does this. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. He made a difference. He made a distinction there. He made a major distinction. He made yes, he did a major distinction, and he showed the partiality. I'll use that word. He showed it. He gave to his from his imam. That's a lot.
That's right.
That's a lot. 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. He makes the difference. And he tells them, as they're on their way, not to be troubled. But look what verse 23 says. And he sent to his Abba these things: 10 donkeys loaded with good things, Mitzrayim, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain. Now, you have to understand that when the pair, they can also mate and what? Produce. So he's also giving him the opportunity to have more. Male and female. Put them together. They will bring offspring. lakim and food for his abba for the journey. Because see, they're saying, he said, look, this is going to be for him when he comes back. While he's there eating on y'all way back, make sure y'all have something to eat. So he sent his ark away, and they departed, and he said to them, see that you do not become troubled along the way. In other words, that was also to set their hearts at ease. You know, don't be troubled and don't think too hard. In other words, you got to read between the lines. Don't think too hard. Don't become skittish when you get out there. Don't go backwards, but continue to go forward and continue to remember what was done here, and don't overthink it, and don't allow yourself to become troubled by what happened. Let's move from where we are forward. And so that's what we see. All right, 25. 25, 26, 27, 28. And let's read verse 1 of 46. I'm going to get ready.
Then they went out of Mitzrayim and came to the land of Canaan, to Jacob their father. They told him, Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Yaakov's heart fainted, because he did not believe them. And when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had sent to carry him, the ruach of Yaakov their father revived. And Yisrael said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I'll go and see him before I die. So Yisrael took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices to the power of his father Yaakov.
Now, once again, let's look at this. And they went out of Mitzrayim and came to the land of Canaan of Yaakov, their Abba. And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive, and is ruler over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Yaakov's heart fainted, because he did not believe it. He fainted. He just passed out. Okay?
Yes.
And because he couldn't believe it, was almost like he had that, well, why would y'all come back with this? And so then they had to show him. And when they told him all the words which Joseph said to them, and when he saw the carts, this is how and why he could believe it, because you have to understand he had a relationship with them. Right. And so he knew what his the language that his son would say. Once again, this is one of the things why even when I'm reading in the writings that I look to see, that there is something about the words of Abba Yah. No matter what man has done, he can never come in and mimic those words. Right. You can see when a change comes in. I've said this before. Whenever a person that you know or may have known, if you are familiar with how they speak to you, you know if they write you a letter, you know when it is them writing you, because all it is their words, their spoken words put in written form. And so when you begin to read a letter and somebody hijacks that letter and puts something else in there, you know when they come in and hijack, because you're just saying, well, he wouldn't use that phrase, or she wouldn't use that phrase. She wouldn't say it like that. She wouldn't do that. They can have the penmanship down to the letter to where it is perfect. Where they say, man, you could not tell at all, because they can really duplicate handwriting. Well, the problem comes in is that people can take your handwriting and write exactly like you, but they can never sound like you. They can try to uphold it to the best of their ability, but they cannot hold it for long, because they are not you.
That's right.
They are not me. That means that people cannot. They can only, but for maybe a short time, fake it. But eventually they're gonna fail, because they are not you. Anybody that can, even identical twins, cannot be each other.
Right. That's right.
There is still that code in them that says they have their distinct identity, and it's different, even though they look exactly alike. They speak differently, even though they may sound exactly alike. Their words are going to still be different, because they're not the same person. And so you can tell when a person is writing, and then when somebody hijacks it and takes it up, because it doesn't sound like them, even in writing. You're like, no, that don't sound like them. They wouldn't say that. That's not them. That's why if you ever watch Cold Case and SVU and Law and Order, and watch those things in 48 hours, you see, especially when Mishpachah say, that doesn't sound like them, and they say, well, they left for what? They left a suicide letter. And they say it doesn't sound like them. So thinking, well, how did they hear them? They wasn't speaking. They didn't leave it on a recording. Yes, they did. They recorded it through their writings, and it did not sound like their speech. So they said, no, this is not them. We know this is not them because this is not how they convey themselves. This is not how they sound. So once again, you have to understand, when we read the writings and we are familiar and we become, and when I say familiar, I'm not talking about to the point to where we are disrespectful or where we think now we just got this thing on. I am talking about when it becomes so a part of you that when you read it, you hear his voice. And when you that doesn't sound like Abba Yah. That's somebody that came in and hijacked this portion. That's something we got to see, because if you really do research, you will find out that many of the writings were hijacked, the scrolls, and that many of them, they took stuff out and they put stuff in. So it's important, once again, that we learn his voice through the writings, and so that we're able to hear when he says what he says. Now, this is the same way Joseph was with Yaakov and Joseph. And Joseph knew what it would take for his Abba to believe that he was alive and that it was him. And so his Ruach revived in him. That meant he came up out of his place of where he passed out. He basically just passed out, because to hear, that his son was still alive was a lot. He was able to come forth, whereas Sarah was not. Remember when she got the same information according to the book of Yesher? And when she got the information and told her that Isaac was dead, and then he came back and said she was alive, it was too much for her heart. She fainted. Then when she came back again, it was too much. And the next time she died because she couldn't handle that information. Joseph passed out, but he was revived. He came back, so he did not stay in that place. So once again, it's important that we understand information. Sometimes when a person gets too much information at one time, that can happen. But the great thing about this is that not only did he hear it and he was revived, but he also saw it. And listen what it says in verse 28, and Yasrael said, it is enough. In other words, you ain't got to tell me nothing else. I don't have to see nothing else. Let's go. He said, Joseph, my son is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. So you have to understand, he was making preparations for this, and he knew. Now let's look at what he did. After all this, he didn't leave right off. He had to go and do what was important. So Yasrael took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the power of his Abba Isaac. Are you understanding?
Yes.
He had to go before he ventured off to where he was going. He had to acknowledge Abba Yah in this, so that as he moved forward, he could give him Torah, and at the same time acknowledge what he was doing for them right then. Because remember, it was spoken. Now, and power spoke to Yasrael in the visions of the night and said, Yaakov, Yaakov, Yaakov. And he said, here I am. Verse 3 says, and he said, I am power, the power of your Abba. Do not fear to go down to Mitzrayim, for I will make of you a great nation there. So it's important that we understand what he was doing. He was not just jumping up and moving. Now, mind you, famine is in the land. He just didn't go because there was an opportunity. He just didn't move because it sounded, it felt right and looked right. Before he did anything, he went and offered unto Abba Yah to ensure that this was the right thing to do. Even though out of his own mouth, he said, I will go to my son before I die. And Yahuwah assured him, it's so. It is so. Go ahead. It is so. Go ahead on and do this. He said, because I will make of you a great nation. Where? There. Right in that place. Now you have to understand. Now, whenever Yahuwah says a word twice, it means pay close attention. Right. That will come to pass. In Ibram, Lagoyi Gadol means a great nation. Physical multiplicity. This is to begin when they arrive in Mitzrayim. Now, it's important that we understand that Yahuwah did this. And because he did it, he was the one who made it come to pass. Are you understanding?
Yes.
They believed the command to be fruitful and multiply, and Abiyah did it while they were there in Mitzrayim. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now I know many may say, well, Yahuwah said it and he said it, and because he said it, you know, he had to give them multiple wives. No, I don't believe that. Just like he told Chava and Hadam, be fruitful and multiply, and it wasn't nobody but them.
That's right.
And that's all they were supposed to do. Now, once again, it's important that we understand when Abiyah says it, it's a done deal.
That's right.
It's a done deal. So once again, it's important for us, and we're going to stop at verse 3. It's important. Well, we're going to stop at verse 4 because Yahuwah will in the great rising. But it's important for us to understand all that took place and all that's taking place, even with us as a mishpachah and as a chosen people. It is important that we follow the path that they walked in, that we observe their lives, that we see all that Abiyah desired for them and all that he did for them. Why? Because when we watch their lives, guess what happens? It helps us to understand. Now, mind you, we're getting ready to see everything that takes place before they began to celebrate Peshat. Isn't that phenomenal? Isn't that amazing? That we are just days away, and I'm just saying days away. We're still in our winter season. We followed by seasons. And because we're still in the winter season and we're anticipating the season of spring, that Abiyah, the season of Abiyah, the spring, beginnings, we're anticipating and expecting this to happen. We're following what's taking place and what's going to lead up to this. So it's important that we pay close attention to every detail, to everything that our ancestors and forefathers did up to that time and even before that time. So once again, I want to encourage your hearts. I want you to be encouraged to be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of Abiyah. Know that your labor is not in vain in him. Once again, we are set for the defense of the truth. It is within us to stand. It is within us to do just as Joseph did, to be able to, even though odds may be stacked against us, to still be able to stand and to stand in victory. Even though we know that the odds may be against us, but you have to understand, even though odds be against you, Abiyah will never be against us. Because if he be for you, he is more than the world that can ever turn against you.
That's right.
And that's important for us to know. Once again, I want to encourage your hearts as we make preparations for our Sabbath rest. I want you to rest well. And I want you to anticipate and expect a great and powerful move of Abiyah on your day of Sabbath rest. Once again, keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong. I want you to remember that I am Prophetess Sabrina Brown, also Moral 777, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, located in South Carolina. I want you to remember here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, this is the place where the Torah does the body excellent, and it is so. I also remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside, and it is so. And it is so. And it is so.